The film Hook has had an interesting reception over the years. When it was first released in 1991, it was heavily criticized, with many finding it lacked the magic of Peter Pan. However, over the years, it has grown a more appreciative audience, particularly among those who grew up with it. Nonetheless, I still see it ranked among the lowest Steven Spielberg movies in rankings of his filmography, and even Spielberg himself has said on multiple occasions he does not like Hook, and that's perfectly in his right. After all, he did make the movie, and if it had not come out exactly the way he thought it should and sees things he could have done better, it's understandable why he would look down on it. For me, it's still one of my favorite films he's directed. This is something you could possibly chalk up to nostalgia, since I did watch it quite a bit when I was younger. In fact, Hook was probably the first Steven Spielberg movie I ever watched, before I even knew who he was, and before he became one of my favorite directors. However, while I did really like the movie as a child, I did not fully appreciate the themes in its execution until I revisited it several years later. The film itself went through an interesting development. Spielberg had long been a fan of the Peter Pan story, and he originally wanted to do a straight adaptation for Disney. Eventually, it was taken to Paramount, with the studio even advertising it in a reel of upcoming projects in 1985.
Somehow, they were always destined to meet. Director Steven Spielberg and Peter Pan.
Spielberg then dropped out, mostly because of the birth of his son, and Nick Castle, the director of The Last Starfighter, stepped in to make it. It was around this time that writer James Hart's son asked him what would happen if Peter Pan grew up, which inspired him to write this new take on J.M. Barrie's famous character. The project then passed to TriStar Pictures, and because of Hart's script, Spielberg's interest in directing the film returned. Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman were already cast at this point, and had so-called creative differences with Nick Castle, and that's when Spielberg signed on to direct. It was initially going to be a musical, with John Williams and Leslie Bricusse writing the songs, and one of Spielberg's later regrets about Hook is that he chickened out on the musical aspect, although a few songs still remained in the finished film. The movie also went over budget and took much longer to film than initially planned. This disappointed Spielberg, who made a promise to himself that he would never let the budget and schedule get out of control after this happened on Jaws, Close Encounters, and 1941. He's managed to keep to this promise on most of his films, starting with Raiders of the Lost Ark, but Hook was the one that got away. Watching the film, I think it's obvious that Spielberg made this at a specific point in his life. Spielberg had a fear of spending too much time on movie sets and not enough time with his children, and that fear is reflected in how Peter Banning is portrayed early in the film. I've talked before about the workaholic father cliché, and the reason I think so many movies that use it don't work is they try to make the father too sympathetic. Hook does not have this problem, because Peter is a jerk to his children through the first act of the film. Even when he tries to accommodate them, like attending his daughter's school play, or having an employee at his firm record his son's baseball game, it still feels half-hearted. The absentee father is a common theme in Spielberg's work, and Hook captures his own worries about becoming like Peter, all grown up and forgetting what it's like to be a child. I think Robin Williams was a perfect choice to play this version of Peter Pan. Williams had already proven his ability at playing dramatic roles at this point, which was necessary in playing the adult Peter. When he remembers his childhood, he's able to slide into that without it coming across as awkward, as Williams was known for having a childlike energy in his comedies and stand-up routines. Michael Jackson was really keen on playing Peter Pan in the movie until Spielberg told him what the story would be, and that was for the best, as I think he would have absolutely been the wrong fit. Probably the most pivotal moment in the film, and the one that really captures the theme of Hook, is when Peter remembers his past and flies again. It's an emotional scene, and the moment that Spielberg appears to put the most of himself in the film, especially Peter's joy at becoming a father. Thus, when Peter takes to the sky for the first time in decades, we feel the same happiness as him. Spielberg has often been a master of finding the right emotions, and this scene gets to me every time. As Captain Hook, Dustin Hoffman delivers a performance that also fits with what the film is saying. He's hilarious in spots, but he also depicts the never-ending obsession his character is going through in his continuous pursuit of Peter Pan. Rather than being thrilled that Peter is so easy to defeat when he returns to Neverland, Hook is disappointed at what he has become. Hook's manipulation of Peter's son Jack is also brilliantly portrayed, and it's this that ultimately drives Peter and gives him that extra push to find his happy thought. I actually used to be down on Julia Roberts' interpretation of Tinkerbell, and did not think she was the right casting for it. However, she's grown on me, and part of that comes from the little subtleties of her performance. There's one moment that especially stood out to me on a recent viewing, where she sees Peter decide to stay in London and not come back to Neverland. There's a heartbreak on her face, knowing that she might not see her friend again. And even though she's ecstatic to have Peter back all these years later, she also understands the importance of him saving his children. It shows how much Tinkerbell has matured since she tried to get Wendy shot down. A complaint many critics had about Hook was regarding the production design for Neverland. They felt it looked too much like a soundstage or a theme park. This is also one of Spielberg's own criticisms, and a major reason why he only likes the beginning and end when we're in the real world. He has said he dislikes how the movie looks, and that if modern technology was available to him at the time, he would have created a better-looking Neverland. I personally think the production design is excellent. I always interpreted Neverland as representing a child's imagination, and a child would want that magical island to be like a theme park. The special effects also hold up remarkably well today, especially when Peter is flying around. Another criticism I've commonly seen is that Hook is way too long. 2 hours and 22 minutes does seem a bit excessive for a Peter Pan movie, but I've never found myself bored when watching it. Anytime I put it on, I'm always shocked whenever the climax begins and think, wait, we're here already? I understand if someone mostly wants to see Robin Williams take to the skies and act like Peter Pan, it can feel like it takes a while to get to that point. However, I find myself so invested in the characters and enjoying the various set pieces before then that I'm not too bothered by how long that takes. One part of the film that seems to be admired by everyone, including those who dislike it, is John Williams' score. Williams has a real knack for writing themes for characters associated with flying, whether it's Superman, E.T., or Harry Potter, and Hook absolutely deserves to stand next to those. Peter's theme is wonderful, of course, and I'm also a huge fan of Captain Hook's theme, as well as the more sentimental cues. And When You're Alone, one of the few songs to be retained from the musical version of Hook, is a lovely tune. I do feel the music plays a significant role in why many people of my generation look back so fondly on the movie. There's something about Hook that brings a joy whenever I watch it. Roger Ebert wrote in his review that he felt the film did not bring anything new to Peter Pan, but I disagree with that. I thought Spielberg and the writers brought a unique take to the material, developing the classic characters in interesting ways while still respecting what James Barrie created. The intent of Hook was to make something magical, while also exploring what growing up and taking on added responsibilities and becoming a parent can do to a person. I think it's a film that Spielberg could have only made at that specific time in his career. Not only was he trying to prove he could make more adult films, while still dabbling in popcorn entertainment like the Indiana Jones movies, he also attempted to balance his filmmaking career with being a father. For films Spielberg lacks a fondness for, Hook strikes me as one of his most personal projects. It's one I'm always happy to revisit, just as much as more highly regarded pictures. I was shocked to find out how disliked it was in the critical community, but I've always been enchanted by Hook and will continue to be for many years to come. See you next time.